this computer because my cloud full. There we go.
All right, all right. Well, good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. My name is Mary
Afternoon.
Jenkins, and I am the host of My Truths podcast. I have a special guest with me today here on My Truths podcast. We just go over a variety and different topics, whatever the Holy Spirit lie on our hearts for us to talk about. That's what we talk about, dive into, and explore for the use of our edification and edification of others. These are topics and conversations that we have all the time, but we are just allowing other individuals to hear what's our heart desires and the things that God has placed on our heart and that burden us daily. So I think that it's important that we have these conversations and share these conversations with the world. I have a very special guest today that's going to be joining me, and the topic for today is going to be community. And that's what it means, like what it means to you, how it has a different impact on everybody, and why is that important, and what do you think, what do you think the importance of that is? So I have Kay Farlow with me today. She is a mom, an entrepreneur. um she don't like to call herself this, but she is a real estate investor. A mogul in her own right. She is the founder of Power Center in South Bend, Indiana, that gives back knowledge and wisdom through the let's just call it gateway of financial literacy and teaching our community the importance of building generational wealth and how to become financially free and become financially stable. So I am going to let Kay tell more about herself. She is an amazing person, friend, and sister to me. Welcome, Kay.
Thank you. I was about to say welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Definitely excited to be here. You want me to intro myself now?
You can go ahead. I told you this is a
Okay.
conversation, so we just gonna let it flow.
All right. Well, like Mary said, my name is Kay Farlow. I am a business owner, entrepreneur. I use her word, mogul, real
Yes.
estate investor, um, uh, just focused on empowering the community through our organization called the I'm Power Center, where we focus on providing knowledge, but then assisting clients, the community, the residents with creating practical plans that we can then assist them in implementing because knowledge is not power until we use it. And so, not just
That's
teaching them, helping them to plan and execute on those plans so that they can reposition themselves and improve their quality of life.
yes, yes. See, and y'all gonna find out as we listen to this word why I love her and how me and her just meshed together. We'll have to give our testimony on another day and how we connected, but it is through that exactly what she said, that passion, that drive, that desire to want to see something better for our people and our community that connected me and her. And when we realized God had showed us, the same vision, we was like, oh my God, we gotta collaborate. Like we became collaborators in each other's lives immediately, and that just grew into a sisterhood. But um so Kay, can you tell me why is tell me about yourself. So tell me where this desire, as I was going to ask you, why is the community important to you? But tell me where this desire started, right? So you're an entrepreneur, business owner, mogul, real estate investor now. But tell me, so start at the beginning. We both grew up in South Bend, Indiana. So tell me, how did you, as a little girl, from the West Side, you grew up on the West Side, right?
I
So the
did.
West
Yep.
Side of South Bend turned into this mogul that is now, I'm gonna mention this, a nominee, two-time nominee for faith-made millionaires. This is a 5 to
Amen.
7 figure opportunity that puts you in on a global platform. How did you go from this little girl to a business mogul? Tell me about that. I got chills. I'm just bringing it up.
Well, I love it. I was just telling this story again this morning, and I find that I love that you start there because it's in our story where others can find hope and where they can find that power that lays on the inside of them that may be lying dormant, right? Being able to see how exactly the environment they came from, which ultimately is an opportunity to destroy the individual, can
Yeah.
actually become the very platform that propels them to a better place. And so,
Ooh,
my mother, it's so funny.
that's
My
rich.
mom, yes, yes. My mom was, I would say, a single mother, even though she had a husband on paper, right? She didn't have a supportive partner, one who provided and did his part inside of the home. So I watched her. She had 8 kids, originally 11, so 3 passed. So let's add that to her list of trauma, right? So she had 11 kids, 8 that survived. But I watched her have 2 and 3 jobs, coming in, doing the best that she can, still trying to provide inside of the home, provide the meals in and out, right? But at the same time, struggling financially. And so, in becoming a teenage mom myself, see, my mother was 14 when she had her first kid and ended up getting married by forcing her mother to emancipate her at 14 years old. And so that literally started a cycle that kept going even into her children. So, my sister becoming a teenage mom at 15, me becoming a teenage mom at 16, right?
Wow.
So, in that experience, I decided that financially I needed to figure out how to provide a better life for my son. And so through that process, as we think about some of the quotes on what you focus on grows, right? Or ask, seek, and knock, and the
Yeah.
Lord responds to those different things. And so I was literally in pursuit of a better life financially. And so as a result, those things began to open up to me, and I was wise enough to have an ear to hear and an eye to see when the
Wow.
opportunities were presented. And so, learning first to finish in high school a semester earlier than the other high school graduates. So I finished in December when we graduated in June, right? Initially being sparked by the doubt that everybody
Mm.
had. You smart, you should have an abortion, you shouldn't have that child, you're not going to make nothing of yourself, you won't be nothing. And so literally taking that energy and using it as the fuel that I needed to really push
Wow.
through.
So
Yes.
so so I wanna stop there for a second, for 1 second. So you actually took your trauma and turned it into purpose, right? You actually took the thing that the naysayers, the doubt, the people that thought that you couldn't do it, you use that as fuel to be able to catapult your life on a trajectory that would ultimately lead you here. Is that what you
Yes.
like? Is that what I'm hearing? Because
Yes.
again, we come from the same city. We grew up
Mhm.
in the same city. I wasn't born in South Bend, but I
Mhm.
moved to South Bend at 4 years old from Chicago. So my
Mhm.
whole childhood experience is through South Bend. I mean, all my friends, I have so much family there. I mean, we talking about a population, what, of 100,000, 102,000 people.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
a lot of relatives, a lot of family where we don't, all of us girls don't take our trauma and turn it into purpose until later on in life. You did it as a
Mhm.
kid.
Right. Absolutely. I did. As a teenage mom, I it was painful. I don't like staying in pain very long.
Mm,
Right. I
okay.
like to move out of that space as fast as possible. And so it was painful to have the people that you love and respect and are there to raise you up and nurture you doubt you. and
Mhm.
give you that negative feedback, uh, and this expectation, attach this expectation to you, that you won't be able to still be the success that they thought you would because you've gotten pregnant. And
So
so,
let me ask you a question. This is so what's crazy. This is what the Holy Spirit just dropped in my spirit, and I'm gonna say it just like that because that's what happened.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
Do you possibly think that your love for community came from a lack of having community?
That's powerful right there. I've never thought about it in that sense, but very possible. You know, they talk about getting to the root and
Yeah, that's what it
understanding.
made me go,
Uh-huh.
well, because I now we've talked about our stories. I know, but there was something about hearing your story in that moment and you telling me about the naysayers and you talking about the naysayers in your family. That was your community, right? Because we always
Right,
say all the time it takes a village to raise a child. And I think about how
right.
me and my siblings operate in my family. Now we operate as a village, and it's because my mom raised us to be tight knit regardless to what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Raised
Mm-hmm.
us together. So there was that internal core village, but then you got the people on the outside, whether it's aunties, uncles, cousins, whoever, that got
Right.
their opinion. And is it possible that not have, you got your internal household because you got enough siblings and you got your mom to have that support there. But then when you go outside of your household, that's your true community, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Mm-hmm.
community, and not
Right.
having that force field around you as a child made
Mm-hmm.
you become a community activist. I think that's very
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I even remember, teachers at the school looking down on you, and even I was nominated for homecoming court. They said I couldn't be on the homecoming court because I wasn't an example.
wow.
Um,
Because you were pregnant or because you were
I
a
was
mom.
pregnant because I was pregnant. Yeah. So I wasn't the example they wanted to put before the other students. And so
Yeah,
things were taken from me that, I had essentially earned, because of who I was, but it was stripped from me because of the mistake I had made,
I bet you they kicking
right?
their in the behind now. Okay, I'm sorry. That was
Uh-huh. I wish I could
girl
remember,
had
some of them
jumped on
folks' names sometimes. I love to look them up.
You
I
should have
remember
had me.
my
I'd
eighth
have had
grade math teacher,
the
that part. My
recall.
eighth grade math teacher literally standing toe to toe to me, and it looking me in my eyeballs in eighth grade and saying, "You think you something, huh?"
Ooh,
You know what I'm saying? And so,
wow. So
those moments, it just, that stuff don't feel good. It make you feel horrible and less
yeah,
than. But I didn't like staying in that place very
so you
long.
happy about that jam.
Uh huh.
Fact. So because I mean the title is community, right? But the
Right.
subtitle of it is, do you think that they're important and why? And I think for a certain to a certain degree, that's the question. That's what we kind of tapping into. But even in
Hmm.
you just telling your story and saying, do you think they're important? Well, of course, I think they're important. I've become a community activist. But was it, is that tied to anything of your past, or is it that you just became a community activist because it was by happenstance? No, you have a story that led you
Hmm.
into becoming, and I keep using the word and I'm gonna keep using, community activist. And it's not
Hmm.
just South Bend, right? So tell me a
Right.
little bit more. I know you, because I'm ready to get into the talks about iron power. I'm ready to get into it. So that led you down that
Yeah.
path in regards to
Yep.
a teenage mom. What happened next, Kay?
Yep. I had what I would call four pivotal moments as it
Okay.
related to my understanding about money. The first one happened when I went into college, my freshman year. They taught us about personal finance. That they introduced individual tax returns. And so I learned how through that class to prepare my own taxes. Well, immediately that saved me over $100, right? Because H&R Block, and that's who a lot of us would go to, spend, charges a lot of money for an individual return, and for a single parent, that $150 or whatever that ends up being, because you have a dependent, right? That they got to
Yeah.
add to that return. they charge for that, and it's not cheap. And so
Yeah.
learning how to do my own taxes showed me, this takes me less than 30 minutes to do it, but they charging me 100 and whatever dollars at the time. We talking back in 2000 or 99,
Yeah.
2000.
99
Um,
to 2000.
right.
Okay,
So
I'm
I'm
sorry.
like, shoot, I took me 30 minutes. I can do mine and other people's and charge them $50, save them
Yeah.
some money, but
So
make
you were
me some
an
money at the same
entrepreneur out of
time.
college is basically what happened. You clicked your entrepreneurial brain. You wouldn't call that being an entrepreneur, but that was what happened.
Yep. Yeah. Once I noticed the opportunity, which is what entrepreneurs do, you
Yeah.
find a need and you fulfill that need. And so I did that with the tax returns. And that was the first time I realized an area where we can take back our power, bring dollars back into our households and not have to pay so much out, especially when we need every dollar, right?
Wow.
So that
So
was
that was the foundation of going into this community work that you do now, because that's community work. That's
mhm,
still rather in your household at the basic bare minimum baseline, that's still seeing a need and saying, okay, why would I take this and give our money away to someone else when we can make our money circulate with inside our household? So that was like
right,
the seed, right? Okay, go ahead.
right.
I'm
Yep.
excited.
So that second moment came when I finished my bachelor's degree at Indiana University South Bend. I went to work for a car dealership. That was my first career job after getting my degree. I had just purchased my first home, so I was 23 at the time. This was in 2004. And I go into this new position, and now I'm seeing how the wealthy, I would call them, buy
Mhm.
cars versus how we buy cars. Sorry, that light is on automatic. I'm sitting too still.
Yeah.
uh,
I was like,
versus
wait,
how we buy cars. Yeah. So I watch my mom pay cash for cars, and when it break down, it hopefully the taxes was coming soon, so she can get a new car with the
wow,
tax return. Then if she
wow.
had a payment, it was through a buy here, pay here experience, right? It wasn't where she had walked through the traditional process. And so I'm watching this traditional process going, oh my goodness, here's another example of how we're being taken advantage of. So I learned that if you're in the finance department and they can get you to sign on the payment amount, you're
Mm,
oblivious to what the
to the
interest
interest.
rate is, what the term,
Oh, you
all the
talking my
details,
language.
right? And so I'm like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. So then I began to teach people how to buy cars. Check Kelly Blue Book. Check the what the suggested values are of the vehicle. Go into your credit union and get a pre-approval and have that in your pocket. It's like playing cards. You don't reveal your hand, right? Until it's time for you to reveal your hand. So when you get to that dealership and they tell you what they can do, you say, well, this is what I got. So
What
if
I
you
can
can't
do.
do better than this, then we gonna
Little
use what
baby
I
just
have.
taught me. Now listen, I do finance now, but little baby just taught me here recently. Hey, no, we not doing that. This is how we doing it. We gonna do it this way, this way, this way, this way. And exactly
Yeah.
the way she told me to play my cards is exactly the way the deal panned out. And
Hmm.
I was walking around shocked, like these people that gave me a check to go walk over here and get a car.
Right.
You just get the car and don't have to you don't have that finance issue with the car people. You don't have to
Yes.
worry about them
They
coming and
ain't
repo
running
your
your
car.
credit 50 times, you
Yes.
know,
Okay. I'm sorry. I had
sending
to
you
say
on with the car and you ain't even approved. You were weeks later and you still
they
getting rejection
go
notices. And you
back.
like, what is happening here?
Okay. Yeah. So I had to say that
Yeah.
because it really worked. I mean, it really worked. So okay,
Hmm.
what was three?
Okay, so the third one was being introduced to real estate and where the
Mm,
investment part came in. So I had read a book and so I bought the first house, right? But not because there was any paradigm shifts or pivotal moments. It was just
okay.
mama owned a house and so I'm supposed to own a house.
Got you.
Right? Our environment usually can take us as far as they've been. So I knew to
Yes.
go buy the house. So I did. That was 2004. House was $80,000. Fast forward 2007, I read this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'm introduced to real estate and entrepreneurship and business. Right, this in the story, he's telling all about his rich dad, which is actually his friend's dad, but
Yeah.
he's tapped into all these different areas where he's wealthy. They have a better house, they have a better lifestyle, better quality of
Mhm.
life, versus following the system that we're taught, which is go to school, get education, go get a job.
Right,
And so I
right, right.
decided in that moment, well, I don't want no job no more. We're gonna have to figure this out. I want to be what he is.
But did
know?
you did you ever really want a job, Kate? Because I'm listening to your breadcrumbs lead up to this point, and you were already an entrepreneur. You just wouldn't have called it an entrepreneur. You
Right,
already knew that there was something better because, and you already knew that you needed to have, we gonna call it equity because that's what it
yep,
was. But you
yep,
just didn't know that that's what it was that you were supposed to have. You just knew,
right,
okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do taxes because we could save some money here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and buy a house because that's what my mom, I seen my mom do. But it was setting you up to become who you are. You got entrepreneurship right here, and then you already got real estate investor. You just didn't know that that's what it was called.
right. Absolutely not. I didn't know that's what it was called. I was just following the system, right? The
Yeah.
American dream. You go buy the house, you get married, you get the car, you get the good job, and
Yeah.
magically you're supposed to have the dream life at this
Yeah.
point. Well, I wasn't living a dream. And what
Right.
it wasn't, I was being overworked. It was
I
decent money from what I had was used to making,
yeah.
but I didn't even know what that all really looked like. So in 2008, the Holy Ghost said, Google real estate. And I say the
Okay.
Holy Ghost because I was minding my business. I was watching TV.
Not in the
and
business
you
that was paying
know,
her at the time.
and when that moment, like you said earlier, just dropped in my spirit to get up and Google real estate. And so I was obedient and I did that. And houses were on a site called realtor.com and it was selling for $5,000.
Sheesh.
So
Sheesh.
I knew I had just paid 80. So
Oh
first thing I
God.
did was got in the car to go make sure it was real. Is this
Yeah.
house, is it a house on this land? Is there a for sale sign? Is it, legit what I'm seeing? And it
Yeah.
was.
Wow.
And it was. So that was the third pivotal moment was my introduction to real estate. I was told to go buy the house, but I wasn't taught how to actually do that to make it impactful for me financially.
So when
That
you
wasn't
find
the
out,
story.
listen, because this part blows me every single time. So now, I know your testimony, so
Mhm. Yeah.
we should some really intimate stories and times and all of that. But every time this part blows me because I remember God speaking the same thing to me and I didn't do it. I remember God saying, these houses on this specific side of town are going for this amount. Go and purchase them. The problem was I didn't know where to start, right? But had I just started like you did, just to even go see if it's real, I would have
Yeah.
found out how much they was going for. And I'm like, these houses are actually going for less than 10 grand a month. Like we could buy the whole my head almost wanted to turn into that blow off the top emoji head because
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going, these houses are cheap. And
Yeah.
I'm just gonna call it what it is because partial obedience is still disobedience. I was disobedient. I did not
Right.
get in. So when you hear about those two, what did you do when you found out that these houses was on sale for anywhere from 5 to 10 grand? What did you do? You had a house that you had just paid 80 for.
Right. Urgency kicked in. I told my husband at the time, I said, listen, I don't know what's happening, but I understand that we paid 80. These are five. I went to Family Dollar. I got a for sale by owner sign. I put it in the front yard. I got a empty tube, the stands for the flyers. I went in the house, made a flyer, printed some flyers, and put them in the tube and sat and waited. I didn't know to call a realtor. Right. I knew there was a realtor involved when we bought the house, but we had called the realtor off the sign. So I didn't know or wasn't aware what that really was supposed to look like where you call a realtor, have them bring it out. I just
But
put
you
the
just
sign
stepped
out
out on
there.
faith. You just stepped out on faith. Said, God said, do what we doing it now. Whatever. And
Yes.
so radical, right? That's crazy faith. We listen to Michael Todd all the time.
Yes.
That's crazy faith. You didn't
Yes.
know what was going to happen. You didn't know how it was going to happen. Okay, so get to the chase. How much did
No.
you sell the house for?
So I put 78,000 on the flyer, knowing I paid 80, knowing the market was going down, knowing how much I needed to pay off the debt. I put, or maybe I put 83, and I ended up getting 78 because of the commission or something. I don't know. I probably should look at the paperwork. But
It's
whatever it
okay.
was, a older woman who had been in the community, and you know how our older community is, they like what they like what they used to, and they don't really want a whole lot of change. And so her children had rolled past the house. Her house had burned down, and she had a check
Mm,
from the insurance company. So when within
wow.
2 weeks of me putting that sign in that front yard, right, it was sold.
I almost threw this laptop and phone. That's what I be talking about. And that's what I mean by just the faith of it, right? Because
Yeah, yeah,
I do got I kick myself in the butt a lot about,
yeah,
because now them houses is selling for 100. You know what I mean? Like, baby, I'm not
yeah,
okay. I don't even want to stay stuck there too long. I don't even want to stay stuck there. But just the obedience. So here's the lesson in that for
yeah.
me, and what I've learned and what I took, even at this stage and age of my life, is when God tell you. That's why you be saying to me, sister, I love how you move when God say move, when God tell you to do something, when God say do it now. Sometimes I be delayed, right? But then after a
Hmm.
certain point, I do it because stuff like this reminds me, oh yeah, remember
Right.
when I told you about them houses? And I know
Hmm.
I told you when you didn't do so, how you now
Yeah.
are having a conversation with somebody I spoke to the same thing about, and they did it. And not just you, I've seen it in our community a few different times where they got that same quote unquote Holy Ghost memo about these houses, and they jumped on
Yeah.
that opportunity, and now
Yeah.
they own multiple houses, right? So
Yeah.
you you took that check and bought multiple houses, right?
I did. I did. I ended up buying 5. And
Wow.
yes, I was telling that story today. I was telling a young woman, and this speaks to our fears and to our anxieties, right? Every time I would get to the closing table, regardless of how much the bottom line was, I was nervous and I was afraid. I was just
Mm,
doing it anyway. Right? It
wow.
was just the mere fact that I was taking ownership and responsibility of a new property. It's like, oh my
Yeah,
God, now I'm overseeing and
yeah,
responsible. Regardless of what the tenants do, I'm responsible to make sure this structure is maintained, right? And that it is a positive outcome for the community, and not sometimes what we see with these dilapidated homes and they're not
yeah.
being taken care of. And so I knew all of that going in every time I was signing those contracts. And so it was
So here it is
terrifying, but I did it
each time you
anyway.
had to be obedient, there was fear attached to it. Now I
Yes,
almost
it
jumped up
was.
from this desk because that's how you know when you're being obedient. If you're not
Yes.
scared, if you're not scared, that's what I've learned at this stage of my life. And now there's going to be a whole bunch of people that disagree with me. There's going to be people say,
Hmm.
oh no, because God doesn't, you don't operate, God doesn't operate in fear. And if it's fear, then it's not God, it's the devil. But let me tell you something. When you being obedient and you doing things in your life that in this stage is bigger than me, your humanism going to kick in and you're going to be scared.
Right. Yes. Yes.
And that is not the enemy. That is not the principalities or the prince of the air. That is not none of that. That is pure humanism. And I'm
Right.
stepping outside of my comfort zone. And it's not really fear, it's faith.
Hmm.
It's just triggering a human response of fear. But me signing
That's a good word.
is a pure representation of faith. Even though I'm scared,
Hmm.
the Holy Spirit is not going to leave me because I'm being obedient. So I
Right.
truly believe that if you're not scared, you're not doing what God told you to do.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah,
So,
that was number 3. That was the third pivotal moment.
so where
And
we
then
at before?
I had one more, and I was introduced to a company called Primerica. And being introduced to that company, I would say, put the icing on the cake. So
Mm,
through that organization, I was able to get additional licensing. So life insurance, investments, retirement accounts. But it was the education that drew me.
yeah.
And so being introduced to money concepts like the theory of decreasing responsibility, compounding interest, the rule of 72, your
Yeah.
financial independence number, and how
What
retirement
is
isn't an
money?
age, it's a dollar amount. So it was like the icing on the cake, as I would say, that really continued to propel me into who I became today, and wanting to take all of those components
Mm,
and package it together to introduce it to a dying community, one
wow.
that lost hope, that is living in poverty generation after generation because the education doesn't exist. There's nobody
Wow.
helping them to plan. There's nobody helping them to execute properly. Nobody's holding them accountable. Nobody's coaching them. Nobody's there as that entity or organization or person that's saying, listen, come on, I got you through every step of this. Every time
Mm,
something come up you can't handle, come see me. Literally told a young lady that today. She had decided to take the word of the first mortgage person she talked to. Well, I gotta wait till January because such and such not gonna fall off my credit till then. And I said, well, what about such and
that
such
just
program?
that just irritated the
Right.
that just
So you gonna
irritated
sit
me out of
till
my soul.
January.
Well,
Yes,
well,
but they
see,
don't
even
know no
that.
better.
So are you telling me? So here we go. Are you telling me that this? So you got the breadcrumbs, right? I got really excited.
Yeah,
Ooh, let me bring it down.
yeah.
Woo! Woo! So you got the foundation of your breadcrumbs that goes through your story to
Mhm.
kind of prep you, if you will. Ooh, don't cry, Mary, for the burden that God was getting ready to place on your heart in
Uh-huh.
regards to community.
Yep.
And by being exposed to this education, because I got that same exposure and I know the burden that it placed on me. And it wasn't until that burden was placed on my heart that I didn't
Yep.
feel compelled to stop being disobedient. See, our story is a little
Right.
bit different because you are already used to being, operating in crazy faith. It was that me knowing and understanding that the baby boom era, right? Understanding that my
Mhm.
parents were falling in were baby boomers, and what
Yeah.
that looked like for them 20 years out, how that was going to affect their lives and their retirement setups and all of that stuff. Me realizing that they were not set up and positioned, me realizing that I got 8 brothers and sisters and only 2 of us is doctors. You know what
Mm.
I mean? Like only 2 of us had put ourselves on a path, even though some of us are entrepreneurs, on a path as far as career was concerned, that they would
Mhm.
go away, that they would not have the same financial structures. Thank God, due to education, right? Because my stepmom
Mhm.
advocate in regards to education with us. But it was that burdened me to say, if only 2 out of the 9 of us have had this exposure, right, financially,
Mhm.
that means my mom, my dad, my siblings, my kids, and everybody attached to me don't have this education, don't have this knowledge. And it laid a burden on my heart so heavy to where it don't matter how many times I get mad and say I'm not doing it no more. I can't stop.
Right. Right.
I
Yep.
literally have left my hometown 3 times saying, forget them. I ain't doing this no more. I ain't coming back here. These people don't receive me. They're not trying to hear what I'm trying to say because I got that education away from South Bend and then came back and said, oh, I got to bring it home. Remember, a lot of my family is there. They can't come to me. So I
Right.
had to bring it to them. So can you, do you do you actually, I can't even get it out. I'm telling you, I'm so full right now because I'm listening, going, wow. I mean, I know your story, but I'm looking
Yeah.
at how God actually set this thing up to place a burden on your heart to where you would
Mhm.
actually be okay with doing it, with never
Yeah.
walking away from it or never throwing your towel in or your hand in and say, I don't care, these people ain't listening to me. You know, like
Yeah.
our stories are so different, but it's just crazy how God brought it back together. So anyway,
Mhm.
I think that so I okay, this is where I'm gonna go. This is where I'm gonna go. I want to know, I want you to tell the people, because I already know, but I want you to tell the people about I'm Power. Tell
Okay.
us how I'm Power Center, because we're
Yes.
talking about I'm Power Center, how that
Yeah.
came into place.
So, obviously, collecting all of those pieces, I had a desire to become an entrepreneur. Ended up going through a divorce, and you know, it was through that process that I got shifted a little bit. Wanted to be an entrepreneur, was ready to take that leap. Had paid off a bunch of debts, refinanced the mortgage, got my expenses reduced to the ridiculous because I knew it was gonna take some time to build up. And I met a man.
Mm, okay. Tea.
And that took me away from my city. It took me, as hard as I tried to stay, it took me away. The job I was working for, they asked that I would take the computer with me and work from home. Anybody that knows me knows I have to be around people. You know,
Yeah.
even if I'm in a job setting where it's just people around me, I can talk to and pour into and connect with and help with different stuff they might be going through. That sustained me in the corporate world. Well, once
Okay.
I went home and started working from home, I realized quickly, oh no, I can't do this. I'm sitting at the dining room table, I'm by myself, I'm looking at the walls, and I'm working for
Mhm.
corporate clients. It was not fulfilling by any
Okay.
stretch of the imagination. And so, having acquired all the licensing I did, it was that man that said, why don't you quit the job and use the licenses you have? And so, it was a real estate office right down the street. You know, I went down to that office. I started doing real estate. This is now 2016, get ready to go into 2017. And so it was in being an entrepreneur by being a full time realtor, that
Okay.
I began to pull the pieces together, because as I'm sitting and meeting with clients, they're sharing with you their most intimate moments. You're looking
Right,
at
right.
credit, you're putting plans together to help them get their pre-approval, you're walking with them through the process, and you're finding out everything that's connected to them that they need help with. And naturally, I had just walked through most of it. And
Yeah.
being able to touch them in so many different areas, I saw how I could fulfill a lot of needs. And so the thought of becoming a one-stop shop began to
Yeah.
enter into my mind. And so, in that same time frame, you know, being an entrepreneur, I tell people all the time, it starts to challenge everything about you. And so going to different workshops and seminars and listening to YouTube and all the you know, the audios on success and leadership
Yeah.
and all of our successful black men and women, Oprah and TD Jakes and Steve
Yeah.
Harvey and, you
Ooh.
know, what's our movie mogul, Tyler Perry, right?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
listening to all of them, and I kept hearing it echoed about the knowledge not being power until it's applied.
Mm.
And I remember being in a workshop and the guy saying to us, how many believe that knowledge is power? And, you know, everybody raised their hand because that's what we've been
Right.
hearing. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is
Yeah.
power. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you that's not true. And we all were like, what? Like, he's
What?
gone crazy. What's wrong
Yeah.
with him? Right. But he came
Yeah.
right back and he said, it's not. It's not until we apply it that it becomes powerful.
Mm.
And I said, wow. So during that time, I don't remember the exact moment, but during that time, God began to show me I'm power. I was calling
Ooh.
it empower.
Ooh.
It was a play on words. And I said, we're going to empower the people so that they become powerful. So it's I'm power. And so that was 2017. There was no building. There was
So,
no
wait, hold on. So when people call, look here, I was going to say our center because nobody knows. I am the executive
right.
director of High Power. Ah! Woo! Anyway, we ain't gonna tell that testimony a whole nother day. But I
Yes.
got excited because I'm always quick to correct people, right? About
Yes.
I'm power, but it's either or. I just
It
heard you for the
really
first
is.
time
Yeah.
say it's really empower to I'm power. And
Yes.
oh my
Oh,
God.
wait a minute. You just gave me something.
Yay! Holy Spirit activate. I just heard it, Kay. I'm going, so you mean to tell me when people say empower, they're not, you just literally, I'm stuck. Okay, we'll talk
Yeah.
about that
I
later when
like
we get
that
off this
right there, though.
podcast.
I just wrote that down.
Empower
Empower to I'm power.
to
Yes.
empower.
So I was calling it Empower for probably the first year. And
So that's how it was
one day,
introduced.
yeah, one day I was in a meeting and the guy who was putting our phone systems in said, so it's I'm power, right? And I looked at him because people had said it before, but it
Yeah.
was something about that moment. And I said, it is I'm power. And so he looking at me, he's like, is that how you say
Are
it or
you
not?
sure? Are you sure, ma'am? It's your business. So, on paper, I'm Power is your first business in
Yes,
your own, and I'm
yes,
Power is a nonprofit organization, right?
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
So I know that it's a long it's not it's a long, but I can make it short. So I transitioned out of real estate that second year. I had went from selling 7 homes to 31. And so I'm seeing the success. I'm seeing how people are drawn to me, and I'm recognizing that there's only one of me. And so I have to get bigger somehow. And so I had a decision to make: either form a team in real estate, become my own broker and hire agents. But none of that made sense to me because I also am attracted to helping them with everything. And so
Yeah.
I want to talk to them about their taxes. I want to talk to them about real estate. I want to talk to them about life insurance and investments,
You
their
want to talk
full
to them about
financial
your
portfolio.
You
Right.
want to
Yes.
talk to people, to the community about your own personal experiences. That's what I just heard. You
Mm-hmm.
want to give your
All of
testimony
that.
over and
Yes.
over and over and over and over again so people could see the fruit of God's labor, the fruit of when
Yes.
you do it this way and put this formula together, this is what you get. This is the recipe that comes out of that, right?
Yep.
That's what I
Yep.
heard. Okay,
Yep.
so go ahead.
And so when I looked at what I was connected to, the Primerica platform more closely resembled what my passions were than
Okay.
just real estate. And so through a lot of negative talk and doubt again, people
Mhm.
closest to me telling me I'm crazy for switching from real estate so soon when I was doing so well over to the Primerica platform, where I was essentially going to have to rebuild again. Um, I had to do it anyway. So it's about knowing who you are, making the decision, focusing on what that thing is, and doing it regardless of what anybody else thinks. We got to stand with a surety that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, regardless if you think so, or you think so, or you think it's going to be good, or you think it's going to be bad. It's whatever I say. Right.
Yeah.
And so I moved into that vein. And within 5 months, I was what is called a regional vice president. And so in that transition, I was required to open an office. And so I came back to the city of South Bend. I purchased a commercial building, and we launched our office. Now, it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. We ran
Okay.
into a lot of opposition, and not from, well, from really a lot of different places, but it was the people we wanted to help that hurt the most. The
Yeah. That's
resistance from them that
yep.
made me realize, okay, this is going to be a bigger
It's a bigger,
undertaking than I
yeah,
thought. I
yeah,
got to deal with their mindset, and I have
yep.
to help them understand that what I'm bringing to you is next level. It's going to propel you and position your family for generations to come. And so a lot of them are looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, not financial planning, right?
Right. Right.
And so the I'm Power Center was able to be birthed, that one-stop shop that I talked about. I was able to bring other Black business organizations into our center and allow them to do their part. We do our part. And then through the nonprofit, I added another layer. And so
Okay.
that's how the I'm Power Center was birthed, essentially.
So basically, you created. I'll use this for all the time because I know what God showed me. You created a business hub.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Took and said, okay, I want to be a one-stop shop, and I don't got to do it all. So I'm just going to collaborate and partner with others that are doing it.
Correct.
I grabbed a
Yeah.
space, and because I needed space anyway, right? I already got
Yes,
another
I need it
idea.
anyway.
I need the space anyway. So I'll grab this space. I'll take one office. And then we'll open the other offices space for events, all of that open to the community, so they could see me vulnerable and transparent, laid out before them,
Yes.
saying, hey,
Yes.
I'm selling fresh free hope over here, because that's what I tell you all the time. Fresh free hope,
You gonna
fresh
make
free
me put that on the
hope.
back of our
Yes,
t-shirts.
on the back of my shirt.
No, what
Fresh
I think need to be
hope.
on there though is empower to empower. They gonna be like,
Yes.
what's that
Huh?
mean?
What it said, what it said. And so it's amazing, Kay, because even in that, I think you said we just recently this week, another celebration. This week we celebrating 4 years, right?
Yes,
Of On Power.
absolutely. We are 4 years.
We're celebrating 4 years this year. We're
Yeah.
expanding into new territory. Ooh, don't cry, Mary. Don't cry, Mary. We're expanding into new territory, and God is doing some amazing things, even through our partnership, right? And coming
Yes.
together
Yes.
and just taking this vision that I have. And I tell people, I'm quick to tell people, listen, when I know God showed us the same vision at the exact same
At
time,
the
and it was
exact same time.
God knew this chick gonna get mad when she get to the resistance of the people. She gonna say, I do not got time for these people. And he always has to make sure that his plan still comes to pass, right?
Yes.
He don't
Yes.
let his plan become aborted because of our disobedience. And God, thank you for your sovereignty in that way, because
Yes.
the plan still had to go forth. And because
Mm-hmm.
I knew I always had that burden, it never left me. Even when I
Mm-hmm.
would leave, I would still be burdened. I may
Yes.
obedience have been mad, but he always still brought me to. And so I tell people all the time, I thank God for you, where people don't even understand why. It's not
Mm-hmm.
even just your heart is good. You're an amazing person, an amazing mother. You care about people beyond your own self at times, which I get mad at her about, y'all, but we'll talk about that later. But she puts people before herself so much. But that none of that stuff is why I love her so much. I love her so much because I watched her. I was watching her and she didn't know I was watching her. And it was never out of envy. It was never out of jealousy. It was never out of coveting. It was out of grief, because I seen her doing what I know God has showed me needed to be done. And it wasn't my
Mm-hmm.
vision, it was God's vision. And
Right.
I know he kept telling me, this has to happen, this has to happen. And where I would fall into disobedience, Kay continued that thing. Like, y'all don't know. I love her because she did what she was obedient. And because she was obedient, and because of her heart, he put another burden on her to go say, you need some help. I don't even live in South Bend right now. I don't live there. And she lives
Glad
in
you
South
said
Bend.
right now.
Because we're gonna have a house in South Bend anyway. Look, we do have houses in South Bend, but I don't know what God gonna do. I say right now, because you never know what God gonna do. We might end up. I ain't even gonna announce that right now on this thing, but we don't know where we're gonna end up living at.
Right. That
God has
part.
ministry, and you hear me call I'm Power Center a ministry, he's
Mm-hmm.
called this
Mm-hmm.
ministry to not only be national, but become an international vessel for
Yes.
his kingdom, right? And I'm
Yep.
clear, I'm extremely clear about that, which is why I decided that after all those years and walking away from this specific assignment, when Kay came to me and said, hey, I need some help, but not asking me, just saying what she needed, God was able to speak to my heart and say, there, give her a yes. Yeah. And I'm going,
Yep.
God, I don't understand none of this, but who would have known years later that the assignment God has shown me, he was showing somebody else at the exact same time. That person was going to continue in the work as I came in and out, in and out. And that very person will be the person to come back to me and say, I need some help. God,
That is
y'all don't know
amazing.
how humbling.
Yeah.
That's a
God.
humbling. That's I be the perfect. I tell her all the time, we can be Kobe and Shaq. I'm gonna be the perfect Shaq. You ain't never got to worry about it because I'm clear now. After walking away 3 times, I'm
Yeah.
extremely clear. Ain't no, you don't just get to walk away no more because I didn't already you, as you could see. I didn't necessarily need you to do the work, but it's a you called to the work.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I didn't
Yes.
need you. My plan gonna keep going. My word don't return void. But
Right.
I'm not playing with you, so I stopped playing with him. And I
Yes.
said, okay, what would you like? God, what would you like? How would you like for me to serve? Because it was never about me. And when I say it was humbling because I had so much pride and feeling like it had to be this way, or it was my vision, or it was this, it was that, it was never mine. And God wanted to show me that it was never mine. I know I just went on a tangent real quick.
Yeah. No, you good. It's all
Saying like,
his. As I look at how many turns and twists and exits I'm Power Center has taken from what I thought it would be to what it is
yeah,
now, even as
right,
it continues to transition, I'm like, God, I never envisioned all of this. I never
right.
envisioned doing this part of the work. I really was just focused on this. And you didn't turn it into all of this stuff.
All
So
this,
clearly it wasn't my vision either. It was
never your
always
plan.
his. It was always his. And
Right.
so
Well, I
because of
remember
that,
a conversation we when we first got together. You said, "I got this map on my wall, and it's a national map because iPower is supposed to be all over the United States." And I looked at you and I laughed and I said, "I'm going to show you my map." No, baby, you have to. This is an international. It ain't even about the brand, right? It ain't even about the name. It's the work. This work is kingdom. It to the
yep,
kingdom is international. What we're called to do in teaching people about this thing, this education of finance that we learned that was never taught to us in school, that we only got so much of it in our
yep,
home, we only got so much exposure to it, and God had to take those breadcrumbs and then turn them into something. We
yes,
got to tell these testimonies to the world because it is not
absolutely.
just our economy that needs this help. Like, imagine taking what we do to a third world country. Oh
Yep,
my God. We would shake
yeah.
their government. That's controversial. You want to talk about controversy?
Go, girl. Woo, jeez,
We would
jeez,
shake
jeez.
their government as a
Yes,
whole because we're now taking our Western culture mindset about finances and
yep,
taking this same copyrighted, I'm calling it's God copyrighted. Now we didn't copyright it by we it's literally copyrighted by the Lord. You can't steal it, you can't copy it, you can't do nothing with it at
that
all.
part.
You could try to mimic it, but because it's his vision, it would only be a counterfeit. It's not going to produce what it should produce.
Right.
But
Yep.
taking that same thing, collaborating with others of our community, in
Uh-huh.
whatever that those communities look right nationwide, because every community is different. You got a South Bend of 102,000 people, but take that and put it in. Uh, we had some expansion going into Atlanta and had some expansion going into a bigger communities like Florida and Kansas City, where it's
Yes.
500,000. Now you're talking about a different look or perceptional community. Now you're talking about a different type of territory that you got to go into and kind of uh
Uh-huh.
navigate through, right? And maneuver and look and see what the needs are to that community so you can teach specifically to those needs and not be offering people something they don't need and don't want.
Right.
I think that's a big deal, because as we get all of those lessons and we expand and we grow, God got some major things that he would like for us to do for his people as a whole. And I'm just excited for
Yeah,
what's
absolutely. Me
done.
too. Me too.
I'm
Me
excited
too.
for what's to come. I'm excited for what God is doing. I want to say thank you, Kay, for joining me today on
Yes,
the podcast and just giving
absolutely.
a little bit about your story and I'm Power Center and how you kind of got to that place of community and vision and how you serving our community. Thank you. I tell you all the time, but I'm gonna tell you publicly. Thank you, thank you, thank you for just staying boots on the ground and staying obedient and all that you do for our community, and how you really have a heart to collaborate and bring our community together and not be in competition with others. It truly shows in how God continues to bless your hands and the things that you do. So thank you again
Yes,
for
absolutely.
wanting to do this and just talk a little bit like we normally do, but do it to a bigger
Yes,
audience platform to shed some light on saying, hey, listen, this is what God did with my life through obedience. And this is why we care about the community. This is why we think that it's important. And
yes,
he can do the same thing with yours once you become obedient and tap into what it is he's calling you to do, because those
absolutely.
breadcrumbs ultimately lead to your purpose and your destiny and what you supposed
Absolutely.
in that kingdom work. So yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Kay Farlow.
Yes,
This was
thanks for
really
having me.
thank you so much. And I
Yes,
appreciate you. All right, guys.
absolutely.
This is